Welcome to the Broskiedoodles. Welcome. Robert Ingwanzo.
Robert what?
Robert Ingwanzo.
Was that somebody?
Ooh. Yeah, this guy. This guy probably didn't let him know that,
Oh, somebody from your old job?
Yeah. They didn't let him know.
The fuck? I quit, dog, and fuck you too.
No, he was a cool guy, and I don't want to leave him hanging, but yeah, that was... Qué bueno, pregúntale cuál es el acceso donde se coloca cloro y con el frecuencia se hace. No sé si tenemos ese acceso en ese modelo de aire en contacto. Oh, en contacto. Me llaman cuando termine para pagarle. Gracias. En contacto. I guess we're in contact a bunch of times there. Okay. Alrighty. Now that we've killed a minute and a half, I'm sorry. What's going on?
Hello, people. Thank you for coming to the... You want to start it off?
Welcome to... Can you imagine? Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome again to the Broskiedoodles podcast. Today, we are just hanging out for once in a while. Every once in a blue moon, I guess. We get these days where we are in sync. It's, a normal time over there for you. It's definitely normal for me over here in the U.S. of A. East Coast.
In what sense normal?
Well, normal that, we're doing it not too early for me and not terribly late for you. I hope it's not too late for you guys. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about what we're going to bring to you today on this episode. So
calm down with that excitement, Steven. No, actually, I have some interesting topics. For people that don't know, we're about 6 hours away. So we actually have to travel in time when we do this podcast every time. So it's a crazy it's a complex thing, but we do it for y'all. And I recently was watching, I've seen many documentaries on this because it's a very, it's dear to my heart, this topic. It sort of inspired me when I was a young boy in the ballet rooms. I saw a documentary. It's called 30 for 30 I think it's ESPN, and they do like different athletes and their story. And this one was about Lance Armstrong, the American dude, the cyclist that won the Tour de France. I think more than anyone. I think 7 times, but then was taken from him after they found out that he doped. And I wanted to talk about a little bit of that because I feel that the way that he's portrayed is a bit unfair in the sense that he's like arrogant and all these things, which I think are kind of like, you kind of need to, he's like a bit of a dick.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, he's a bit of a douchebag. But I like the fact that you kind of have to be a little bit like that to be a competitive monster, And and like they always want to make it look like he doped, that's why he won. No, he won because this guy's a fucking beast, and everyone was doping. If you didn't dope, then you couldn't even compete with these people because that's what was happening. Just like in baseball. I mean, I don't know how it is now, but you remember when Jose Canseco, was that him?
Yeah.
Canseco, Cuban.
Yeah. Baseball, like a heavy hitter. He was just knocking him out of the park. It's funny you bring him up because I didn't know about him until I was at one of my jobs where I would rent a truck a little van to one of those memorabilia kiosk guys. Like he would sell like old Pokemon cards and sports memorabilia was his real thing. And he gave me a Jose Canseco one. And I'm like, oh my God, this must be worth so much money. Like, dude, are you sure? He's like, yeah, man, of course. Yeah, for sure. I looked it up. It was worth a whopping $17. It wasn't worth a lot of money, but I learned who Jose Canseco was through that experience.
He's Cuban, I think. So he should be on your on your side of the field. But I mean,
Oh,
for
he
a
should?
card, was
He
it a
should,
card
because
that
he's Cuban.
he's Cuban? Yeah. Is he the card?
Just
that
because he's Cuban, I should know about him then, huh?
right. I mean,
No,
I
no.
think so. If he's a baseball,
It was
like
a little figurine.
a little figurine.
card.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in his case, he was like the whistleblower, right? He wrote a book when he wasn't relevant anymore and fucking snitched on everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely.
And he snitched on Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, all the big ones back in the day. But it's a similar story with Lance Armstrong because he wasn't the only one that got caught. Like a bunch of people got tested and caught. And they just sort of try to make him as an example, Like, oh, you're the one that has won everything? Okay, we're not just going to take this one. We're going to take all the ones that you've won before. And what's fucked is that when you think about doping, you're thinking about like, okay, you're going to put something in your body that's going to make it easier for you to do like whatever you need to do. But it isn't really that's not the what happens is they have to work their asses off, and the doping is just going to allow them to work harder for longer time. So it's not a freebie. You have to do the work anyways. And it's not like when you're doping in heavy lifting where you're like putting things that are going to make you stronger and all this shit. What these people were doping on is you would get oxygen in your body that pretty much they wouldn't, the way that they would do it is at one point, so that they wouldn't get caught, you're doping yourself with your own blood. So what they do is they take out your blood, a lot of it, and it's like a blood that's good, right? And then you go into training all the way up to like
is that like your red blood cells that were whatever the blood banks are looking for? I'm not really too sure about it.
Yeah. Like they take your blood, and the red cell count is a specific one, right? And then they go training, right? And they have to train a lot right before the race. And when they're training, they're being exhausted, and their blood changes, right? It sort of like gets depleted of oxygen or some shit like that. But what they do is right before the race, they get blood taken out, and then they get the older blood put in. And that older blood that they saved doesn't have, or rather yet, still has all the things that were depleted from the other blood from the training. So it's hard to explain because I don't really know how it works, but in a way, it's like you're putting new blood in you right for the race. And it's sort of like it didn't even affect you on the training. But that's weird because it's like, is that doping? I mean, you're not putting anything in you that you wouldn't have. Is your blood. But like just
like
to
self-enhancing. It's
Sorry?
not really self-enhancing. No, it's not really like self-enhancing. It's
Well, it is. I guess you are self-enhancing yourself, but it's not like the way that you and me would think about it, that it's like a chemical that you're putting in and that's gonna make. No, it's like your own blood. So it's a bit harder to sort of I guess find the morality in it, because the way that some people describe doping is anything that can enhance your performance. So the way that I look at it is more like anything that's outside, like an outside entity, right? Like a chemical or something that you put in that's gonna make you perform better. So because of this was like the newer ways of doping, like the more smart ways of doing it. Because before, what you would do is you would put a chemical or a medicine inside of you that would make whatever the blood didn't have it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if it was oxygen or red cell count, whatever the fuck it is. But then on tests, you will be able to notice that there was a chemical put in. Then they found out a way to make it more sneaky. And that way was by taking out your blood, months before, I don't know how long before, and then putting it back in you before the race. So it made it really hard for tests to find out if you were being enhanced or not, because how do you find out if somebody's doping when what they're putting inside is their own blood? So for a while, that sort of got through, nobody was able to. And then later on, the more recent times, they came up with tests that were able to measure this, whatever it is that they're trying to measure, and compare it to the blood cells that they had before. Because what they do is they take out your blood, they test it at the moment, and then they keep a bunch of vials with that blood for like use in the future. You know, so this guy, after 8-10 years from the first tour that he won, they went and got all the vials of blood that he had turned in for all those competitions that passed the tests, right? They passed the tests that were available at the time. But then what I find the most fucked up part is that they retroactively tested blood with a system that wasn't available back then to still fuck them over. Like, you would think, if I got away with it then, with the testing that you had, that's it. Like, I got away. Like, you didn't find anything on your test. So why the fuck, once you change the rules, you retroactively apply that? And the other thing that's fucked up is that this didn't happen to other people. People that got like second place or third place, that wasn't taken from them, and they tested positive too. So it seemed like a very it seemed like very attacking towards him, and I find that fucked up. Well, how do you see it?
No, I mean, first of all, what's the difference between that? I mean, and I'm not in the specificities of everything, but I mean, like, pre-workouts, like, that enhances me, even though I'm tired or whatever. And I know these guys are competing at a professional level, but I mean, it's their own blood. You know what I mean? Like, I to this moment, I really don't feel like that specific way of doping should be illegal, because at the end of the day, it's not. It's what they had prior. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I would love to speak with somebody who's or figure out what exactly is it wrong with it, or at least the other side of the coin, as far as, why is it wrong? Because at the end of the day, these professional athletes, they all, like, for instance, football players, right? When football players get hurt, I don't know if you got to see the
Adrian Hernandez one?
The Adrian Hernandez, yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, where he's saying that every game he was like on pain pills every day, like every game.
Yeah, and they would just inject that football player to continue playing without the pain. And so are we going to take away titles because of that?
Yeah.
That's an NFL, that's a widespread NFL thing, you know what I mean?
And it is enhancing. It's enhancing the amount of playtime that they can get out of you.
Exactly. I mean, that's not wrong. So,
well, I mean, I think it's wrong, but what you're saying is it's acceptable. It seems so.
It's acceptable. Right. Exactly. That's what I mean. It's acceptable in that situation because many people, like, are making tons and tons of money, and it's okay when somebody's team or the ad revenue is making tons and tons of money, but, like, I know the Tour de France is big, but it's just not as big as some of these other sports, and they're trying to turn around and, I don't know, crucify somebody for doing something that's natural. If I drank a tea that, I don't know, made me hear better, okay, or enhanced, I'm just thinking naturally, I don't know if I would feel bad about that, you know what I mean? Like, if I bought a machine that trained a specific muscle in my leg that allowed me to enhance the pump down on a bike, am I going to be like, this isn't NASCAR, this is human bodies, you know what I mean?
I think you're touching on a very important thing now, but let's get past certain things here. You're saying, well, it's natural, right? But I think we can get into dark territories if we start justifying this by being natural or not. Because even things that are natural, if it's enhancing your body, you are taking. So, would you agree with me that, regardless of how natural it looks, which it was like a bit of my argument with the Lance Armstrong thing, like, it's his blood, but would you agree with me that if it enhances, we should put it in the same category if it enhances your performance, regardless if it's like something we consider natural or not natural. If it enhances, let's consider that to be some sort of doping, right? And within that, we can say like, well, there's certain things that seem more natural and organic, and but let's say like, all of that is doping. Does it matter? Like what would you prefer? Like as an spectator, I saw a comedian talk about this one time. It's like, shouldn't we like tell them, no, you need to inject as much doping as you can. We want to see the best football that we've ever seen,
Yeah.
We want to see basketball players fucking flying, like at the end of the day, and the reason why I say this is it's so hard to really know if people are doping or not, and this happens even today. And this happened like there's a documentary called Icarus on Netflix about the Russian doping program that they have with the Olympics. They had chemists find out ways of giving you this doping, but for it not to appear on tests, right? Because the tests are very specific for what they're looking for. So if you're able to tweak it a bit, then you get past the test, right? So wouldn't you say, because it's unfair that some people might figure out a way to get away with doping and others cannot, then it should just be like, okay, everybody can dope? Because otherwise, then you really get the disadvantage, right? Like in the Tour de France, Lance Armstrong was like, hey, you want to take doping? Like, everyone's doing it. Kind of seems like when you're offered drugs as a kid, like, everyone's doing it, bro. But he knows this. Like, he knows his whole life he's been working for this, and he's super good. He knows he's the best, but he knows that he cannot win or might not win if he doesn't get to the same standard as the rest with that advantage. Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know. I don't have an answer for it, but sort of help me here with understanding what is the line. Like, should we have a line for doping, or should you just be like, do whatever the fuck you want? Like.
Well, I don't know if we should be letting them do whatever the fuck they want, because at the end of the day, you don't know what some of these, especially like man-made doping, could create long-term effects, right? But at the end of the day, you are the professional, and you have the ability to choose what you want and don't want. And I understand that there's some pressures and things like that if everybody's doing it or whatever. But I'm going to be, to the best of my abilities, and I know I'm super competitive and everything, but like, if I'm not going to take, let's say, steroids, right? I'm going to give myself that holistic boost, right? In the case of football, I find that to be more wrong than the actual
like
blood
the biking doping. Well, I think one thing that comes into it is that what they do to the football players is actually gonna hurt them long term.
That's what I mean, not only are they cracking, back to back and creating concussive issues like down the line, but I also feel like, you start putting these like isolated pain medication into something, and that could deteriorate them, but you only need them for 10 years,
right?
But you're
definitely fucking them up at a faster rate if, instead of them resting when their body's telling them like, hey dude, this shit hurts, right? You're like, all right, let's put some painkillers and go out there. Like, that's gotta be bad. Like,
yeah,
for sure.
I cannot see how that's like gonna be a-okay down the line.
And that's not even taking about the concussion part, which is super serious.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we already have enough issues. So at the end of the day, the sport cannot get in the way of the quality of life for the person to a certain degree. And what that degree is, well, that's at what the person, the actual athlete is okay with. And
okay.
I think Lance Armstrong in this case should be saying, okay, look, like, yeah, we could be open about it. We can be open about giving saying, hey, I'm training and my training is this, or my doping level is what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? I think there should be an open thing. But if you're gonna try and be sneaky, then really it's up to the sport to create a good enough test to test anything and everything non-natural. And if they don't catch it, then
I think the problem is that when you're testing something, there's not like a magical thing that you could be like, all right, test this for everything non-natural. Like you have to specify. Right? So I think I get what you're saying though. Ideally, it's a very important point, because this is one of the reasons why I don't look at Lance Armstrong like I look at him like a somebody to look up to, and people would disagree with that. But the reason is because with someone like Lance Armstrong, well, first of all, the doping that they were doing is not, from what I understand, detrimental to their health. But besides that, it's like, ideally you want a system that tests everyone and everybody can do this safely without cheating. That's what you would want ideally. But if you're not able to do that as a rider yourself, as an athlete, would you risk losing and not going with your career because you decided not to, take this drug that everyone else is taking? Like, you get me? Like, a lot of times, the way that these guys describe it, like Lance Armstrong, they're competing in a sports where the testing for doping is so behind to the actual reality. So it's like you would want, as a legitimate athlete, for those tests to be efficient so that they can weed out the ones that are cheating, so to speak. But if everyone is doing it and there's no way to stop it, I cannot put the blame on the one that did it and won it all. And this is coming from somebody that I think I agree with you. Like, I do think at the end of it, it should be wanting to protect the athletes. You don't want to put the athletes in a position where they have to make a decision of continuing their normal life or going into a dangerous sort of dark place so that they can compete. So you would want there to be an association that makes sure no one is cheating so that you don't have to go in those dangerous waters. But if that's not the case, then I don't think you can blame the ones that did it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I and to be honest with you, I really don't think that if they're competing in a sport that is not up to par, then we as sport watchers, we just need to talk about, either petitioning for the sport to cough up the money and do it. Because we're about to get the coronavirus vaccine in record time. You're gonna tell me you can't test for at least the main ones? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you would think that we could. Yeah, you would think that should be already solved.
We're at this point where if it's not solved, it can be solved.
Should be, right?
Yeah, it should be. Now, I know that the whole Lance Armstrong thing happened 5 years ago?
Nah, even more.
More, right? So, okay, we're back then, 10 years or whatever it is, ago.
It's 20 years ago, that's when he started winning those tours.
Yeah, but when did he... When
Shep popped off scandal? Was like around 07? 06?
So wow, really, it's been that long.
I remember when the little Armstrong...
Yeah.
Oh, because this guy had cancer. I think he had one of his testicles removed, and then he went and won again.
Yeah.
This guy's a fucking legend. I don't care. I don't understand how people can hate on him. But like, for example, I don't know if it was Sammy Sosa, but one of those guys got caught with this bat that had cork inside. Remember that?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think they found out because the bat broke and and then they saw inside that it was hollow. I think that was like that's something easy. Like that. That's easy to sort of it's easy to recognize that it's cheating, and it's easy to test it. Like, okay, we're gonna look at all the bats in an X-ray machine, and we're gonna or we're gonna drill them. Like, I don't know. It's easy to know, but when it comes to doping, it's easy. It's hard to sort of categorize what is cheating and what is not, because you were saying some things like, oh, well, having a good rest, that's gonna make you perform better. What about protein shakes and energy bars?
Or that's what I'm saying, or pre-workout. I mean, that inevitably like starts your dopamine receptors and like gives you all of like the focus that you need. Well, technically, you know, I mean, I don't know to what degree you at that level of athleticism, like I don't know what your own blood is, how far more advanced can you get, but at the end of the day, like if you need a blood transfusion, let's say, I don't know, like let's take the Olympics for example, right? The Olympians, these Olympic people, they come to where the Olympics are going to be held weeks before, especially when it's like a colder environment or a higher altitude, because they need to perform at the same level they're performing but get used to the environment in which they're doing it, right? Does that give the edge to those people who train in that environment all their lives?
Yeah.
Are we testing? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and is it fair for those who are coming in? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a sport's a sport. You nut up and shut up. You know what I mean? Let's go. But especially when it comes to your own blood, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're not Bruce Banner getting the Hulk freaking
but
serum.
If it's making you better, I don't know, maybe, because like what you're saying is,
are you giving oxygen to those people up in the high altitudes? Is that enhancing them? No, you're fucking
it is. Like it is a very it's a very delicate situation, because it's not clear cut. It's not a black and white thing, you know. It's a gray, you know. Because it is true, like, what if, like, I would assume that this has to be like a divisive line between what is considered as moral enhancements and you know what I mean? Because what you're saying is true, like pre-workout, protein shakes, energy bars, those are all enhancements. So I would assume, like, what is the thing that we use to determine if something is moral or not a moral enhancement? And I don't know, maybe if it's, because like when you say the blood, you couldn't say that you're putting an external agent in your body. It's your blood. So it's sort of hard to categorize it and go one way or the other, you know. It's, I guess, like with the baseball people, it seems like, I don't know, but based on the book, it seemed like everyone was, the big hitters were all doing it too. So it's hard to sort of blame somebody if everyone else was doing it. It's a lot easier if just one people cheating and then the other were not. You could be like, yeah, this. But if everyone was doing it, like everyone that raced with Lance Armstrong, tested positive eventually for it, and he's the only one that got his titles taken. I don't know. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, I feel like even through the development of a sport, you know, you just learn more and more what is going to make you a better player. I mean, basketball players back in the day were not as good as they are now, and that's, you know, because of the type of training that you learn, you know what I mean? You do box jumps probably weren't a thing in the beginning of basketball, and you start to get more ups, and it's just all science essentially. I mean, there's I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that whole blood transfusion thing came from horse racing. That's what they used to do for horses. If I'm not mistaken. And so somebody just said, oh, well, you know, we do this for horses. Like, this is a thing we do to horses.
That makes sense.
So, like, we could do this for humans as long as it's the same blood, right? I mean, and I would be damned if you know what I mean? Like, for instance, I just think that, like, take into consideration, I know that obviously this is kind of not ever going to happen, but if there's an athlete that needs a blood transfusion in the moment, let's say, I don't know, he's all of a sudden he's shown symptoms of, what's the word I'm looking for? Anemia, right? Or you know what I mean? And we've got millions and millions of dollars backing him up. We've got 30 bikes. You know what I mean? Just for him to train on and stuff like that. Like, well, he's an investment, so I need him to perform at top notch. I'm gonna give him some, all of his own stuff, but like I'm just gonna bring him back to 100%. I mean, don't we do that already with horses and cars? And you know what I mean? It's not like you're racing with the same car that you're training with. You know what I mean? You're giving. I know that there are little nuances that make that obviously aren't the same, but I don't feel like this particular type of scrutiny needs to be there.
Well, I think that it comes down to what we consider to be safe, but it is an objective thing. It's not like we can, it has to be the opinion of people, because at the end of the day, when we look at somebody that trained their asses off and they looked for ways of how to train and how to do this, and then that made them better and they won, I at least feel that seems fair. Like, he did things that were fair and he achieved what he wanted. Same with, like, I recently saw a movie called Ford versus Ferrari, which is really good. It's with Matt Damon and
I've been meaning to see that. Yeah,
and some other guy,
the Thor guy.
Yeah,
the Thor guy, right?
No, the Batman guy, Christian Bale.
Oh, Bale. Okay, yeah. Sure.
And pretty much they wanted to beat Ferrari, so they made a Ford car. And so Shelby, which is the guy that made the Mustang Cobra, Shelby, I think, he did this car, and he like looked for ways of saving weight and obviously the guy was a super good driver, so that they won. Right. But would you consider that cheating, or would you consider that fair strategy of finding the way of making the car lighter and all this shit? Like, it's sort of, it's a very weird line, because when we think of something that you inject and it makes you stronger, like Popeyes, you're like, okay, that's clear to me. That's cheating, right? Right. But then there's like things in the middle that, like you say, are nuanced. It's not very clear, because with Lance Armstrong, it's like, well, he injected his own blood, and that allowed him to sort of withstand a little bit more of cardio, But then it doesn't seem like, to me, all that wrong, because it's your own blood. But if it is helping you, I guess it is wrong. But it's just hard to sort of categorize it correctly.
But did they make that same assumption? Did they make that same, I guess, criticism when say the bikes went from like steel to carbon? You know what I mean? Were there some bikes in the race that were still steel while this person had a carbon bike?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It all comes down to money, and if you're not on the winning team, I mean, no matter how good of a race car driver you are, if you're not funded, that's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. They're still going to give the win to the person who won.
If you had to decide, are you like sort of in the middle of it, or do you think, or do you agree that either one side or the other should prevail? Like, either we're gonna do the best that we can for nobody to dope, or everybody just do whatever the fuck you want. Given the fact that you're saying that a lot of these things are sort of inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that everyone's gonna dope. Everyone's gonna try to enhance their body, but I don't know if doping, like, there's gonna have to be a certain, I think that if we can, and it's just par for the course here, right? If we can determine that the doping that they're doing is not long-term affecting,
like harmful
to the athlete, and it has to be obviously like tested by a non-biased party, right? Like, it can't just be like, oh, well, NASCAR says that, yeah, they can do that, or not NASCAR, the Tour de France. The Tour de France says that, no, that's totally fine, and this guy drops dead.
NFL has said in their latest meeting that concussions are not a common issue.
Yeah, not going to be harmful long term. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, like, have it be tested by a non-biased, the same way we do anything, statistics, right? And it's just like by true science, back it up by science. Take a 30-year span. If it's not tested over the next 30 years, or I'm sorry, if they don't have like a
reason to say that it's harmful to them.
Correct. Like, I mean, if the study doesn't have the 30 years yet, and it's not one of the big like steroids or HGH or hormones or something like that, if it's not one of these like big definite no's, right? And it's just like, okay, look, these athletes are now doing this. We need to start testing this over the next 20 years, over the next 30 years. You know, until we can prove that it is bad for them, we're gonna allow that to keep happening.
Okay, so instead of making sure that it's safe, we're gonna make sure that until we know it isn't, you can use it.
Then you can use it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that would open doors.
That would be where I go. Now I know that that's obviously really gray, and well, you know, what are you gonna do? But at
what
the
do you
end
mean,
of the day,
really great?
That's really gray area, very gray. Like that's very gray because it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, for the life of this athlete and his career, they're not gonna know. They're not gonna.
Yeah, they're not gonna have the data to know if this shit works or not.
Right. So we're gonna take advantage and do it now. Okay. Well, is it one of the things that we know already are gonna cause him like true harm? Does this sound like? I mean, does science show anything from studying something else in the past? If there's any sort of issue, like, is that gonna? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna sign off on that. We're good. Or no, there was, you know, this was happening in Russia back in God knows when. And we saw signs of this, or it you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is not a science podcast, so I really can't speak to it intellectually. but I don't feel like their own blood is an issue.
I mean, one thing, a good example to use is, for example, bodybuilders. You know, like back in the, I mean, they still do it today, but like known names like Ronnie Coleman and Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. One thing that, like, you can use steroids in that sport. Like, they don't give a fuck what you use, right? I mean, obviously, right? Because you can see it. And it's sort of like an open thing. Like, everybody does it, and they still have to work hard and do the muscle, but they just want to get that definement. And it is pretty common, or pretty common knowledge that, I mean, I'm not 100% like informed on all of this, but I do know for a fact that certain steroids long term are gonna fuck up your heart and give you high blood pressure. And you know, like I saw an interview of this guy that's super huge and on Instagram. Yeah. But he knows, like, he was on Tosh.0, which is one of the really fun Comedy Central.
Yeah, I love that guy.
And this guy was like, yeah, like, I already know I will have these issues, but I like to look like this and all. So that's a sport where everybody knows there's detrimental effects to it. Yeah. So
maybe you can split it up, because actually also in the bodybuilding sport there is an all natural class. I think I remember, well, I don't know if there's an all natural class, but I know that I've heard, oh, this is, you know, he is one of the best, or bodybuilders. Like whenever I watch like a video or something and they're talking about the topic, they're like, oh, you know, he was like he was able to achieve all of these with nothing, no chemical enhancements,
no doping, no
steroids, no nothing. Like so okay, maybe Lance Armstrong wants to compete and he wants to win the Tour de France, but maybe he wants to win the Tour like there's a Tour de France for no hold bars, and then there's a Tour de France for only natural. And at that point, you know what I mean? At that point, you gotta, you know, I guess that would be overkill. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that you know, for the love of the sport, you know, for the love of the sport, you're a pole freaking javelin guy, pole vaulter, you know, who dopes and who doesn't, and then there are world records based off of that. You know, the record held for natural, for, you know, holistic pole vaulter versus, you know, just regular pole vaulter. We don't. So you say like
split it up, okay, right? But this whole thing would need for us to efficiently be able to test it. But I think that would be the best choice moving forward. It's like having a league where it's like all natural, and then having a league that's like fucking all out, like not giving a fuck. If you want to take whatever you want and you die when you're 35, you know, ESPN will televise it, you know, like.
Yeah, they will. And I mean, they already do that for NFL. There's the XFL, which is like basically backyard football with real football, and talking about American football. NFL, and then there's XFL, like backyard football, but with like actual NFL players. Like NFL players will come and they'll brawl out. You know what I mean? If they have,
what's the difference?
Boxing.
It's more aggressive.
Yeah, there's like not a lot of rules. Yeah, it's less rules. Like no hold bars. You know what I mean?
But didn't that, because they were gonna start doing that, and then the pandemic came, if I'm not mistaken. Did that die out?
No, the XFL is still in. Let me see what the XFL.
And they can like dope and shit. Is that what part of it?
What is the XFL? Extreme Football League.
Can they dope? Do you know?
The XFL aims to play each game under 3 hours, but in the same amount of plays, it will have 25-second plays. We'll have 2 timeouts. It doesn't really say
the difference.
It doesn't say like what XFL. No, it's a real thing. I mean, 2020 schedule. They're still playing.
It's still happening.
XFL's.
Well, I mean, this is what I read here. The rules difference. The new version. The new version includes several rules differences intended to create a faster paced and safer game. So it's actually, it might not be more, like you said, less than 3 hours. Okay. Yeah, I don't really see what's the difference. He doesn't, like his favorite rule like one guy said that his favorite rule difference is giving coaches the option of attempting a 1-point conversion from the 2-yard line, a 2-point conversion from the 5-yard line, or a 3-point conversion from. So it's sort of like when you make a touchdown, you get 3 choices to do the other, the extra points.
Okay, so I guess it's like more like street rules, but not like everybody's still wearing helmets and protecting themselves. Okay, so I retract that. But at the end of the day, I guess what I'm trying to say is like,
I'm with you though. They should take it to the next level. If you're gonna do XFL, give them steroids, mandatory. And
the problem is that now that I think about it, these are actual. Some of these players are NFL players as well. Like they'll just come from, they're like the second league, the bench players, and they'll come and they'll like make their name in the XFL. Something like that.
You ever watch the game?
No, no. I don't watch sports to begin with really that much, but I watch the highlights or I watch the playoffs and stuff like that, and then I read just little things here and there. That's pretty much all I know about sports. But I do think that I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of unnecessary if they're going to be scrutinizing like every little thing. You know what I mean?
I don't understand why they did the XFL to start off. Is it an off-season thing? Because I mean, unless you make it like we're talking about, right? Like no fucking rules, any steroid you want. Then what's the fucking difference? Like, it's just exactly. Football with like a few different rules change, and it's actually safer. And I mean, I'm all for making it safer. Like, there's actually people that are I don't watch football, and I mean, I understand the basics of it, but you could say I don't understand it really in general. But there's people that are like football fans from like many years, like older people, and I've heard them be like, football these days is for like fucking pussies, there's no action, everything's a foul and shit. And I'm just like, damn, like this shit was worse. Like this shit was fucking, and it's crazy, man. I mean, I first found out about it from that movie with Will Smith. It's called Concussion, I think, or
something. Oh yeah, that movie, the movie where he kind of highlights
he's like an African doctor. And then he starts like sort of seeing that many of these people are dying young or suiciding, and then when they open the head, I mean, it makes sense, bro. I mean, I remember back in high school when I used to watch the football team. I was just like, man, that seems like fucking hard hits, you know? It's really hard. And when you with a helmet, it allows, like, when people look at rugby, even though rugby is more bloody because you don't have the protection, you're gonna get cut and shit. But because you don't have all that protection, the person that's gonna hit you cannot hit you harder than a certain amount, because otherwise they're gonna be hurt as well. So it's sort of like the same argument they have with boxing and MMA, or like knuckle fighting. Like you can like with knuckle fighting, it's more bloody, but when you have a glove, even though it seems like it's softer, it allows you to hit harder because you won't break your hand. So what ends up happening is all this protection just allows you to fucking get fucked up even harder. You know,
right?
Even though it doesn't
More
look
force.
as bloody, you don't see it because it's not a cut, but inside, all the nerves and fucking column is broken. Like, it's horrible in that sense.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, like when it came to boxing versus martial arts, right? Then it was like, well, martial arts is like, it's kind of like a slow thing at the end of the day. Like it was, you know, when you're talking about karate and kung fu and things like that, like that's not a sport that is as exciting to watch as a full brawl out. So then what was made? The MMA was made, right? And it's like,
well, I mean, that also came from boxing not being as entertaining for people as they would want it to be. I mean, pretty much they wanted a street fight that was sanctioned by some league. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And they wanted to throw in some legs and stuff like that. So like, okay, you know what? Then we'll make the MMA. And so it's like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is all for entertainment at the end of the day. Like that comedian was saying that you were mentioning. This is all for entertainment. So like, and somebody's making buku bucks at the expense of the athlete. The athlete's making a lot of money, and that's why they're training, and that's, you know what I mean? That's their dream, and that's what they're good at. Fine, whatever. But don't get it twisted. You think that they're making a lot of money, the athlete, but really, you know, it's the league or whoever's above there. So, you know, let the athletes and let science determine the future of sports. But you know what I mean? Don't retroact. I do disagree 100%. Don't retroactively take away titles for something that wasn't written in stone. You cannot use your own blood to do this. Okay.
Not only that, you tested me back then, and I was fine. So now you have a better test 10 years later, and you want to fuck me up for some shit in the past. But you know, like this comedian that I think it's Tom Papa. It was very long ago, but I think that this jokes, he was like talking, he had a bit about like making sports more entertaining, and one of the ideas was, you know, like give them steroids, like fuck it. But then one of them was like boxing, add one person, you know, like make it 3.
Oh, shit.
It's just like, I mean, it does make it funner, right? Like,
yeah.
But like NASCAR, like half the cars go one way, half the cars go the other way, you know.
Oh my god.
Just to see what happens.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that you could also, I mean, obviously that's going to the extreme, but sports are for entertainment. They're not for how natural it is, but I guess for the sake of the health of the athletes and also for the fairness, we should have, I think I would agree with you, to give it a bit of conclusion, I would agree with you that we should just have a natural and then an all blown out league for every sport. And then if somebody as an adult wants to take all these drugs to become huge and or whatever, then that's their decision, and then we can have one where it's all natural. But hopefully science will allow us to test all that efficiently so that we can have an actual fair fight. And I would assume that we're just talking about taking in, but this is the other thing then, like what are we forbidding? What is it that we're going to forbid? What enhancement? Like
as the natural league in this,
yeah, like if you're in the natural league, like putting your own blood back in you, would we consider that doping? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how strict would it be? Like, you cannot take protein shakes. You cannot, you know, I don't know. Like, how? That's the thing, though. Like, at the end of the day, somebody has to draw a line. And that's the problem with this type of situations where a human being that makes mistakes ends up being the person that decides where that line is. Sort of like when we talk
Yeah.
about free speech. I mean, this is different. But the problem with free speech is that if you restrict free speech because that's hate speech or whatever, who decides that? It's a human being. So that's the danger of it. Like, so it's sort of the same topic. Like, who is the one that decides what becomes morally right or wrong in an all natural league? But
right.
I think that this conversation is gonna be open ended because we're gonna be able to talk about this with more accuracy as the years go, and we can see what new things and developments come about in the sports industry and sports world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just it, right? You have to have somebody determine that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking, how do these documentaries get to Colombia and talk to, like, the biggest cocaine kingpin, or like Vice will go and do a journalist piece on like the streets of New York heroin drug dealer. Like, that drug dealer knows he's being recorded, right? He's entrusting the information that he's giving to these journalists to not out him. Maybe there could be an anonymous source that goes from team to team and figures out, hey, look, this is merely for science. This isn't that's gonna be bullshit. It's not gonna happen that way. But wouldn't that be nice, right? Like, if you just say, hey, look, all right, tell me the things you're doing, okay, and I'll tell you what league you can go play for.
Yo, wouldn't it be funny? Like, this guy's like a constant on every team, right? He comes in, everybody's in the locker room, and he comes in like, hey guys, what's up? Oh, good out here. Oh, you guys watch the new documentary? Pretty cool, right? Hey, have you guys heard of anybody doing a little doping here in the? Nah, nobody. Come on, LeBron, what's good? Come on, talk to us.
Yeah, right.
It's like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Everybody here is safe, what we're talking about. But yeah, it would be funny, right? Like, somebody's like sort of like a snitch. How about this? This just came to my mind. You know how they have the bubble, and they're doing this not only with basketball, but I think the NFL too, or the NHL. They're doing it with everybody, right? They have this bubble. That would be the perfect way to do it, right? If you have a bubble, nothing comes in, nothing comes out, right? It's only what's there. Nobody can come and like give you any. So the only thing you can do is what everybody else is doing, which is training, doing weights, like. I mean,
swapping blood.
Swapping blood. Well, I mean, given those rules, you could say like, well, they're not taking out or anything outside the bubble. So if they need a little fridge and a few bags to keep their blood for a few weeks, hey. Who are we to fucking... I mean, I don't think that specific doping helps everyone in the sport. Like, I think that's more like a cyclist thing because they're biking for 10 hours a day. But would you say that that's... I mean, even though it's very strict, but that's an idea that we would have never thought about if it wasn't for the pandemic. Like, you're going to have a cyclist race or whatever. Okay, for the next 6 months, you'll have to train in this facility.
Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, these people are getting paid millions of dollars. They should be allowed, or we not we, but
we should make them
the league, any league or any sport outfit should be able to say 6 months of the year or whatever the season is, you could train however you guys train, but once you start playing with other players, that's it. Everything's on lockdown. You have random tests, you have random this, random that, and at the end of the day, it's just a matter of keeping the sport pure. What you do on your off time is on you, which is fine by me, in my opinion. But once you're here, everything is on an equal playing field. And yeah, if everything's in a bubble, then at least that will cut down on some things.
That could be a solution. I don't know if everybody would like that as an athlete, but that's a solution.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But you only have to play for what? Like, you play for what? 15 years? You make millions of dollars?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty justified, regardless.
People go to war. The army goes to war, and the government calls you up whenever the hell they want to call you up, and that's it. You know what I mean? You're property of the U.S. government. Whether as an athlete, you're property of the NFL or whatever, whatever sport you play. So at that point, you know what I mean? Whatever you can get done in here is all good with me. You know what I mean? And there's going to be people who get paid off, because money talks, right? People get paid off and bring this and bring that. But hey, that's why we spend millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to fund a sport, so that you can do your job and your due diligence to.
Especially nowadays, that is not like 40 years back when they would make $50,000 a year. No, you're making millions. So yeah, you're gonna stay in that fucking bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
fuck, I'll stay in the bubble. God damn it! But they don't want me playing.
They're not ready for you, Kiko. They're not ready.
They're not ready for the skills.
For the skills.
Bueno. Yeah, but well, let us know what you guys think. If you think it should be dope tested or not. If we should have 2 leagues. I don't know. You know, fucking. What other solutions you find to this? You know, let us know.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, I really do think that there's a conversation to be had here for sure. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below.
All right, keep it real, guys. Peace out. Peace out, Steve.
Later, Kiko. Peace.